do you source the fact that John the Baptist was an Essene? John the Baptist says that he was the one to fulfill the prophecy of the voice crying in the wilderness to prepare the way of the Messiah. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, in multiple places, it talks about one from their order would fulfill the prophecy of the voice crying in the wilderness to prepare the way of Messiah. And they tell the story of basically their exile. And this is like in the Damascus Covenant and in the community rule. I think it's Damascus Covenant, but it basically talks about how they were persecuted. They lost some of the library. They were trying to get back, trying to figure out what's going on. And they have a Christophany. And this Christophany tells them that they need to flee to Egypt and wait there until the persecution's over. And so you've got the prophecies of Daniel about the ships of Kittim come in and take over the Romans. And so when the Romans come in, the Romans basically say, people worship what they worship. And if you try to kill somebody for that, we'll kill you. And everybody pays taxes. That's the only thing they cared about. But that stopped a lot of the assassinations. And so then they talked about how when the Romans came in, they were able to go back into Israel and start a revival as prophesied. And they settled in Qumran and did exactly that. Now, with that in mind, that pretty much connects John the Baptist as being an Essene from there. Where he baptized in the Jordan is actually 8 miles from Qumran, so it's really close. But we also have a document from a church father, which is Hippolytus. He has a list of the school of the prophets, and that was always part of the temple library, the extra biblical prophecies from the prophets, those ancient commentaries and all that stuff. So those were all kept by the Essene, the Zadok priests. But he has this record of starting with Moses and going down through everybody who ran the school of the prophets up until the time when they were taken bought basically by these two heretic priests called Annas and Caiaphas, whom nobody recognized their authority, especially in the prophetical order. And what it says, though, is that it went from a guy named Zacharias to a guy named Joseph, and then it was bought by Annas and Caiaphas as this. So nobody recognized their authority. So what would always happen is if I'm king and my son is king and my grandson is king, and then now my grandson dies, not ever having any kids, we simply back up to my son. Did he have any kids? Yes, he had another son. Then he's king. And if the answer is no, he didn't have any other kids, well, then we back up to me. Did I have any other kids? Well, no, I didn't either. Well, you just keep backing up until you find some other line. He's the closest to the throne, so now he's the new king. And it's the same thing with the priesthood, the kingship, and the prophetical line, which kept the order of prophets, the prophetical school, and all the libraries. So with that in mind, apparently this Joseph guy didn't have any kids. So then it would back up to Zechariah. Zechariah had a kid. His name was John the Baptist. So even though he's not named in the document, you can see that it went to Caiaphas. That's not going to fly. We back up one. Apparently it didn't fly for whatever reason. So we back up to another one, and that's Zacharias. And so it's mentioned in there. And there's some other names mentioned, so we know who we're talking about. Also mentions Simeon, who held the Lord in his hands when he was born. He was part of that order also. So really interesting. So there's just lots of little things like that that you pull together. So Hippolytus' work on the prophetical order, all the quotes, there's multiple ones in the scrolls about them fulfilling the prophecy of Isaiah about the voice crying in the wilderness. John the Baptist saying he's the one to do that in John chapter 1. And then the other pieces like that kind of go together, like in the community rule and Damascus covenant, their whole story of what they did and who persecuted them and where they went and all that together. So it's kind of pieced together. There's no one document that says John the Baptist was the guy. Well, First John, but I mean that he was an Essene. But it's interesting to see all of those comments.